Halito, what up, everybody? It is Fire Fridays. Fire Fridays. DiFe. For Fridays. Peace to everybody in the chat, those who will be tuning in later, and those who here right now. I appreciate y'all. This is a special podcast tonight. We delving into first honor to one of my matriarchs, Rio, and to the Creoles of color. Y'all thought all Creoles was light skinned, they was yellow bones. Incorrect. We're gonna go over the cattle Creoles. We're gonna go over a lot today. So if y'all new to my channel, y'all gonna get a gumbo pot of that fire on my channel. All right, that Creole gumbo pot of spirituality and culture of my ancestors. So let me put on my glasses. It is Carnival, MardiGras season. So we're getting into the Creoles of Louisiana. All right. Now, my ancestors are a part of the Creoles of Louisiana culture. Okay. So we're going to go over some things. So this is one of the things we're going to get into. This right here. All right. And of course, my matriarch, Rio, honor and respect to her from my matrilineal line. These are Creoles of color from Louisiana. This is me during MardiGras Carnival season. And this is some jambalaya that I made with my mama's recipe. And this is her mama. She's a dark-skinned Creole woman. And her daddy was a cattle Creole man. So, all right. Cattle had a cho, y'all done heard of the tribe. All right. So usually I do stuff and it do relate to my paternal side, my daddy's side with my indigenous ancestors. All right. But tonight, this is January leading up to MardiGras Fat Tuesday, which is the last day of the MardiGras season. So leading up to, we're going to have Fridays. That's Fire Fridays. All right. So let's get into some stuff. Peace to everybody. Yes. All right. What's up to Nubia? Yes. DiFe. Yes, we know. Yes, it's two ways to say fire. That's pho and DiFe. All right. Peace, George. All right. I appreciate y'all tuning in with me. I got on that purple and that gold. Of course, I got that green. So we're gonna dig in, and yes, we're gonna dig in. All right, so I'm gonna just give y'all some overviews before we start reading from this. Before we start reading from this, right here, we're gonna go here. Just give y'all, a little background. All right. Now, we will go over the caste system. All right. This is how they came up with this mulattoes and all these different derivatives instead of calling dark-skinned indigenous peoples by their tribal language names. All right. They came up with all of these derivatives. So we're going to go over the caste system too. All right. We're going to go over that. I've gone over this on my channel previous times before. So if you're new, what's up? Sava, what's up? All right, so we will go over that. So, okay, La Creole. Louisiana Creole Research Association advances family research, provides education, and celebrates Creole history and culture. Let me show my disclaimer right now. Right now. For all the people tuning in. Yes. Well, I am finding that. Here we go. So I just got to get my disclaimer out the way because I am going to be sharing from some sites and some books. All right. I will be sharing information. So not all Creoles are high yellow. They are all shades of melanin, all shades of brown, to the darkest brown to the lightest brown. Just so y'all know. So y'all get that misconception, that misinformation out your head, out your ass, and we're gonna go in. I'm looking for my disclaimer. How y'all doing tonight on this Fire Friday night? How y'all doing? I know it wasn't way down here. Let me go back up. I had it pulled up. I got a couple tabs open with these books and these articles. So, yeah, excuse me. Thank you for your patience. I cannot believe it. All right, here we go. Bam. Disclaimer. Copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowances made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, education, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. All right. Here we go. All right. So, all right, this is the historical overview. The Louisiana Creole Research Association, Inc., known as La Creole, was founded in August of 2004 as a New Orleans-based nonprofit family research and educational organization. La Creole assists Creoles of color in researching their ancestry, provides programs about Creole culture and its members and general public throughout the year, and celebrates the legacy of a unique, sometimes forgotten people, Creoles of color of Louisiana. Who are the Creoles? There is evidence that French and Spanish colonial Louisiana identified all its people, white, black, and mixed. That includes Indigenous too, both free and enslaved or in indenture servitude, who were born in the New World of Old World stock as Creole. So if your people was born in Louisiana in the New World of Old World stock, Creole, because they are a mixture of bloodlines and cultures. That is by definition Louisiana Creole. All right. That include the offsprings of Europeans, predominantly French and Spanish, Africans, and a mixture of both that could also include Native American, American Indian. Therefore, the descendants of all these people can claim Creole heritage. Y'all see that right there? By definition. All right. By definition. By definition. All right. All right. Who are the gens de couleur libre? La Creole identifies the gens de couleur, or people of color, as a mixed race descendant of those early colonial inhabitants of Louisiana who became a unique ethnic group. The gens de couleur libre, or free people of color, gained their freedom during the colonial period and American period prior to the Civil War through manumission, emancipation by father owner, self-purchase, military service, and as established under Spanish rule, by living as free for at least 20 years. The free people of color rose to economic and limited social prominence, denied the enslaved population while being denied the political and civil rights enjoyed by the misnomer white ruling class. Thus, Louisiana developed a unique three-tiered social order: white, slaves, and free people of color. So all people of color were in one group, okay? Caught in the middle, not fully accepted by the other two groups, the free people of color created their own society. They gave rise to a distinct, sophisticated culture. They identified themselves as Creole, maintained close family ties, creating kinship networks, maintained the French language. All right, that Creole is a mixture. All right, mixture of languages. All right, placed a high value on education, established and ran their own businesses, rose to prominence in the building trades, and clung tightly to the faith of their fathers as members of also Roman Catholic Church. All right, some of them were converted to Catholicism, even though they had indigenous roots. All right, whether they were Negro Indians, they were mixed with Spanish or French. Okay. And some Agbulan from the diaspora, Caribbean, West Indians type of thing. All right. In rural communities, many free people of color own vast tracts of land, including large sugar cane plantations, traveled to New Orleans to conduct commerce, networked with other families through business partnerships and marriages, and created family dynasties to protect their land and wealth. Some of the gens de couleur Libres were educated in France and became literary, all right, and musical giants who gained prominence in Europe because they were unable to publish their works in race-biased America. Others returned to Louisiana, becoming professionals, artists, and business women and men. A large number of people of color of Louisiana remained in servitude or misnomer enslaved until Civil War and emancipation. However, they easily assimilated into the culture the free people of color had created. Following the Civil War, many of the politically astute Creoles of color served admirably in Reconstruction government. All right. In the Jim Crow era that followed, they led the way in an organized civil rights movement in Louisiana beginning as early as 1870s. Politically active Creoles of color continued the movement throughout the 20th century, which culminated in its success in the 1960s. Creole heritage. The recent surge of interest in genealogy and family history has prompted a closer look at the history and culture of the Creoles of color of Louisiana. Research has brought to light the many contributions Creoles of color have made to Louisiana and to the world, and today their descendants take pride in their accomplishments or in those accomplishments. All right. Yeah, so I'm gonna highlight this again for y'all. Right here, right here, right here, right here. It says that who are the Creoles? There is evidence that both French and Spanish colonial Louisiana identified all of its people, misnomer white, misnomer black, and mixed, all right, both free and in servitude or enslaved, who were born in the New World of Old World stock as Creole, all right, that included the offspring of Europeans, predominantly French and Spanish. Africans are from the diaspora, Agbulan. The diaspora includes the Caribbean islands, all right, and a mixture of both that could also include Native American, American Indian tribes. Therefore, the descendants of all of these people can claim Creole heritage. All right. I just had to show y'all that because this is a good research society that will help you uncover your Creole ancestry. What are the mixtures? Where did your people come from? All right. The American Indian tribes, whether they were French or Spanish. And so, since we're on this, let's look at this right here. All right. I want to show the cattle Creoles. All right. So, let's look at the cattle Creoles right here. All right. All right. Cattle Creole in Louisiana refers to the rich, complex history and culture of Caddo Nation and indigenous people who traditionally lived along the Red River in present-day Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. My family has land that has been passed down to them that is Caddo Hattacho land, all right? There is an infamous mound near their property that we still have today. So this is why I'm speaking on the Caddo Creoles. All right. So, all right. The Caddo Creole culture, known for agriculture, mounds, Trade deeply influenced early Louisiana, interacting with French and Spanish settlers. Through the modern Caddo Nation is federally recognized and based in Oklahoma. They do have a band in Louisiana and Texas. So Texas and Oklahoma. All right. With strong ties to their ancestral homelands in the lower Red River Valley. All right. Ancient roots. Cattle ancestors developed complex societies in the Red River around 900 to 1050 AD, known for pottery, mound building, and extensive trade networks. The Caddo Confederacy included groups like the Natchitoches or the Natchitoches, Northwest Louisiana, Hasinai, East Texas, I may be butchering that word, and the Caddo Red River. All right. All right, the real chiefs. All right. So the French and Spanish colonization brought trade and diplomatic relations, but by 1800s, American expansion led to forced land cessions. Now, my family kept their land. They stayed with their land, okay? Now, it was my grandmother's husband who had the land. It was passed down to him and it was passed down from his father before him, etc. All right. In 1835, Caddo leaders signed a treaty at Shreveport, ceding their lands and moving to Texas and then Oklahoma, where the Caddo Nation is now centered near Benger. So that Bossier City, Shreveport area is Caddo land. All right. Caddo culture in Louisiana. Cultural influence. Caddo culture, including their agriculture, corn, beans, and squash, the Three Sisters, ceramics, and trade goods, significantly shaped the region's history. All right, lingering presence. While the main tribal center is in Oklahoma, Caddo people maintain strong cultural connections to their ancestral lands in Louisiana. Archaeological significance. The Caddo are the only Louisiana American Indian culture with continuous documentation from 900 AD to the present, with their artifacts studied today. The Creole connection. While Louisiana Creole often refers to French, Agbulan, Africans, diasporic Caribbean, West Indian peoples, Spanish people, linguistic and cultural blends, the term Caddo Creole highlights the deep intertwined history between the Caddo people and the development of Louisiana's unique cultural landscape, marked by indigenous foundations and European interactions. In essence, Caddo Creole Louisiana points to the enduring indigenous heritage of the Caddo people as fundamental to the region's identity, even after their forced removal. So, guess what? They didn't remove all the Caddos. They did not. A lot of the dark-skinned Caddos or the Caddo Creoles stayed with their land. Okay? Just so y'all know. All right. Now, this is another site, 64 parishes. All right. Spanish colonial Louisiana. All right. Spain governed the colony of Louisiana for nearly 4 decades, from 1763 through March 1803, returning it to France. And it wasn't even fucking France's, okay? I did a podcast about the Washita. Y'all should look at that. I actually included it in one of the podcasts I did when they had the Super Bowl in Louisiana. And I was talking about the illegal purchase of Louisiana. Okay. So I did show some information on there. But right now it says Spain governed the colony of Louisiana for nearly 4 decades, from 1763 through March 1803, returning it to France for a few months until Louisiana Purchase conveyed it to the United States in 1803. And they didn't have no fucking rights selling Louisiana because it didn't belong to them. It belonged to some dark-skinned Indians, mainly the Washita and neighboring tribes in that area. All right. Yeah, I can look up the Empress's book. All right. Empress Verdiasi. Y'all can look up her book. All right. Return of the Ancient Ones. The Mound Builders. Now, just read y'all that the cattle tribe, the cattle Creoles, were mound builders also. Okay. So this is an old map of Louisiana. It's Lake Pontchartrain right here. And let's see if I can make it a little bigger. All right. All right, so we got Lake Pontchartrain. All right. From the original Spanish plan dated 1796 or 8. All right. The city of New Orleans. Its fortification and Envy Boss. That's kind of hard to make out. What does it say? Envy Bonds. Okay, April 1875. So, plan of the city of New Orleans. And the adjacent plantations. All right. By this quote unquote royal charter people. All right. All right. And here's the Mississippi River right here. All right. This is courtesy of the Historic New Orleans Collection. All right. So I don't even want to show them over there. All right. So, okay. So, all right. It says Spain governed the colony of Louisiana for nearly 4 decades, from 1763 through March 1803, returning it to France for a few months until Louisiana Purchase conveyed it to the United States. Excuse me, in 1803 under Kings Carlos III and Carlos IV. The administration of Spain's Atlantic Empire was strengthened and improved through a number of policies called Bourbon reforms. In Louisiana, the period became amid uncertainty and a major rebellion, but it ended with an unprecedented degree of prosperity. By dispersing large annual subsidies and employing competent administrators who were culturally sensitive to the colony's French-speaking Creole population, the Spanish managed to accomplish what their French predecessors had never done: make Louisiana a relatively stable, growing outpost, even as the turbulent age of Atlantic revolutions unfolded. The period was also marked by the dynamic expansion of slavery in the young colony, the unprecedented arrival of thousands of people from the diaspora, some West Indians from the Caribbean, and Agbulan. Combined, Agbulan is another word that they call Africa. So, combined with Spain's liberal manumission policies contributed to the growth of a caste system of free people of color, the Creoles of color. Many of them lived in New Orleans, but throughout the state of Louisiana, all right, which developed significantly during the Spanish period and was largely rebuilt in the wake of catastrophic fires in 1788 and 1794. Driving these demographic changes was the lower Mississippi Valley's plantation economy, which accelerated in the mid 1790s as cotton and sugar replaced tobacco and indigo as the region's major cash crops. So, tobacco and indigo was already prevalent there, all right? Okay, but they also had cotton and sugar. All right. So it says trade and credit connections multiplied, both upriver towards the expanding American West and downriver towards the Gulf of Mexico, all right, or the Gulf of America, is I will say you call it the Chata, the Gulf of the Chata. All right. As New Orleans grew into a vital port integrated into the Atlantic economy. By the time Louisiana was sold illegally, all right, over Spanish objections to the U.S., it had been transformed from a sparsely settled military buffer zone into a dynamic commercial center. All right. Yeah, okay. All right. So 1762, 1769, secession, uncertainty, and rebellion. The colony's economic potential was, ironically, only a secondary consideration for Spanish officials when they initially gained possession of Louisiana through a peace treaty. During the French and Indian War, 1756 to 1763, King Carlos III of Spain supported his Bourbon cousin, Louis XV of France, all right, only to lose important colonies in Cuba and the Floridas to victorious British. All right. Likewise, the French had lost their northern colony in Canada to Great Britain. So, as partial compensation to Spain for its losses, France ceded the rest of its North American territory, Louisiana, which they got it illegally. They stole it from the dark-skinned Indians of the Ouachita and the neighboring tribes that were mound builders. Okay. All right. So we can go over some of the tribes that originated in Louisiana. All right. The Choctaw, the Homa, the Natchitoches, all of these tribes, the Natchitoches, of course, the Caddo-Hatticho. All right. And numerous tribes. I don't want to leave nobody out. All right. So Louisiana to Spain with the 1762 Treaty of Fontainebleau, which was kept secret until France could negotiate peace with the British. The French preferred Louisiana to be under Spanish control than in the hands of Great Britain. In 1763, France, Spain, and Great Britain signed the Treaty of Paris, ending the French and Indian War. For the Spanish, Louisiana would now serve as a generously subsidized military colony, keeping lucrative Mexican mines safe from the ambitions of British North America, which now extend as far west as the Mississippi River. When Spain inherited Louisiana, the colony was vast and sparsely populated. It stretched north to remote French fur trading settlements on the upper Mississippi River and west into Texas borderlands, where the Natchitoches or the Natchitoches served as a key Indian trading post. Relations with American Indian tribes required lavish gifts that consumed royal funds. The colony non-native inhabitants numbered about 7,500, and the majority lived along the lower Mississippi River. About a third of them were enslaved Caribbean West Indians from the diaspora, including Agbulan/Africa, whose population had not increased since the wave of slave imports sponsored by the Company of the Indies in 1720s. Too remote for regular trading connections with the broader Atlantic world, Louisiana remained what historian Daniel Usner called a frontier exchange economy, where Indians and settlers traded furs and subsistence crops in relative isolation from commercial markets. Around New Orleans, however, a nascent white Creole merchant planter class began to emerge in the second generation colonists who were descended from the French and German settlers during the colonial period. Creole or Criollo in Spanish. And if y'all new to my channel, I will use those interchangeably. I will say Creole, Criollos. All right. Denoted peoples, free or enslaved, indentured servants, and livestock born and bred in the New World colonies, as opposed to those born in the Old World. With fewer sentimental ties to Europe, these white Creoles evidenced a strong determination to maintain their own hard-won social supremacy over officials sent from Europe. This class had dominated the colony through the Superior Council in the final years of the French neglect, and feeling threatened, they mounted a serious challenge to Spanish rule in the insurrection of 1768. This rebellion originated with the first Spanish governor, distinguished scholar and explorer Antonio de Ulloa, arrived in New Orleans in March 1766. Because he lacked military reinforcement, he failed to immediately proclaim Spanish sovereignty. Instead, Ulloa governed for 2 years through the pliant French governor Charles Philippe Aubrey. Despite his weak position, Ulloa sought to impose mercantilist trade restrictions and to curtail the Superior Council's authority. The response of the Creoles, led by Attorney General Nicolas de la Fresnière, was to banish Ulloa from the colony in November 1768. Spain, in turn, dispatched a far more determined governor, the Irish-born Alejandro O'Reilly, who arrived in August 1769 with a formidable force of 2,000 troops aboard 20 ships. O'Reilly immediately proclaimed Spanish sovereignty and abolished the Superior Council outright. The leading conspirators were arrested, 6 were imprisoned in Havana, Cuba, and their property was confiscated. La Fresnière and 4 others were publicly executed by a firing squad. Spanish rule in Louisiana has been portrayed in history books and articles as merciless military despotism, personified by Bloody O'Reilly and his violent suppression of the revolt. In truth, Lafreniere and his co-conspirators were more interested in maintaining local autonomy than in defending French rule. In the decades after 1768, prominent Louisianans lived comfortably and prosperously under Spanish governance. All right, O'Reilly remained in Louisiana for only 6 months, but he created an enduring set of institutions and laws. The colonial government he designed was militarily, judicially, and ecclesiastically subordinate to the Governor General of Cuba, and Havana became the main trading center for Louisiana's merchants. All right. O'Reilly crafted an adaptation of the colony's existing French laws, bringing them in line with those of Spain. The result thereafter, known as the O'Reilly Code, became the basis of the colony's legal system. Day-to-day governance became the province of newly formed Cabildo, a combined municipal council and judicial system where titled seats could be purchased or inherited. O'Reilly also divided Louisiana into parishes, instituted a new slave code that banned Indian slavery, and reorganized the regular and militia forces, including a battalion of free men of color. Okay, y'all see that? All right. By the time he handed over power to his lieutenant, Luis de Gonzaga a Amenzaga, in February 1770, O'Reilly had molded almost every aspect of Louisiana's civic life into a form that would not change substantially until 1803. So this O'Reilly, he divided Louisiana into parishes, instituted a new slave code that banned Indian slavery, and reorganized some shit. All right, so 1770 to 1783, peace, partnership, and nearby revolution. Gonzaga set the tone for subsequent Spanish governors by embracing Louisiana's elite Creoles. Remember, I read about these prominent Creoles, right? These Creoles of color, right? These free people of color, all right? They were a mixture of American Indian, French, Spanish, and of the diaspora, right? That's Caribbean, West Indians, okay? And Agbulan, all right? All right, so this was embracing Louisiana's elite Creoles, especially when he married one, Marie Elizabeth St. Maxent, the oldest daughter of a prominent New Orleans planter. Gonzaga's successor, Bernardo de Galvez, later married Marie's younger sister, Felicity. All right, and many other Spanish officials followed the governor's example, marrying power with wealth and influence by wedding daughters of the Creole elite. It soon became clear that Spanish rule would allow Louisianans significant autonomy, as the Creole dominated Cabildo was given wide latitude in local governance. Spain's administrators focused instead on organizing the military and collecting customs revenues. Okay? Nor did Spanish officials impose their language on Louisiana. All Spain's governors and colonial officials spoke French. So they were speaking French Creole. Okay? All right. Under Spanish rule, Louisiana's population began to grow, especially through renewed immigration from various directions. Acadian immigrants, whose descendants are known as Cajuns. And we're not going to forget the Melungeons, too. I will tap into them, too. This whole leading up to MardiGras, Fat Tuesday, I will be doing Fire Fridays, all right, until MardiGras, all right? So, for Fridays, or DiFe Fridays, all right? So, as many as, let's go back here, all right. Under Spanish rule, Louisiana's population began to grow, especially through renewed immigration from various directions. Acadian immigrants, whose descendants are known as Cajuns, were by far the most numerous, having been evicted from their North Atlantic homeland by the British during the French and Indian War. As many as 5,000 Acadians arrived between 1762 and 1770. Most settled in the bayous and prairie country south and west of New Orleans. Encouraged by Spain to populate undeveloped areas, groups of Canary Islanders or Islenos also began to arrive in the 1770s, all right? Some settling in Galvestown in Ascension Parish, others traveling downriver from New Orleans to what is now St. Bernard Parish. Settlers from Malaga, Spain, founded the town of New Iberia, all right? Okay, numerous Anglo-Americans also came to Spanish Louisiana, some as urban merchants, others as pioneer settlers lured by free land in the regions farther upriver after Saint Domingue Revolution, 1791, 1803, the Haitian Revolution. All right, that's what it's known as today. But Saint Domingue or Santo Domingo, all right, numerous immigrants. All right, this is when a lot of Haitians came to Louisiana, all right? And Haitian people are dark-skinned Taino and various dark-skinned indigenous tribes from Hispaniola or Saint Domingue and those neighboring towns or pieces of land, cities, if you will, part of the island, all right? So, numerous immigrants from that French colony also found their way to Louisiana. See how Louisiana is such a rich gumbo pot of culture and spirituality. I just love it. I just love it. All right. In the early years of Spanish rule, despite the easing of ethnic and national tensions, the colony's dramatic population surge, economic growth came more slowly. Beginning in 1770, the Spanish crown promoted the development of Louisiana tobacco culture. That's my tobacco culture. I love it. Okay. By requiring the royal tobacco monopoly of Mexico to purchase the entire crop from the Natchitoches or the Natchitoches area. Soon the Louisiana product was in high demand. All right. Its quality judged to be among the best in North America. When the Spanish first acquired Louisiana, 49 Natchitoches planters harvested 80,000 pounds of tobacco per year. By 1791, 83 plantations there yielded more than 700,000 pounds. The population of both free and indentured servitude or misnomer enslaved people grew dramatically in this region as well. The number of indentured servitude people more than tripled between 1765 and 1803, from 269 to 948 people. Tobacco production flourished so quickly that by 1789, warehouses in Mexico and Spain had large surpluses on hand. Mexico stopped importing Louisiana tobacco entirely, and Spain cut its quota to 40,000 pounds, leaving Natchitoches planters without buyers. The market for animal pelts it had also collapsed. My nose is sweating, y'all. My nose sweats. Excuse me. All right. In the 1790s, Louisiana planters began to shift away not only from tobacco, but also from indigo, because that crop too proved difficult to sell in the global market. All right. Meanwhile, with no manufacturing to speak of, Louisianans still had to import basic items such as clothing, shoes, soap, glass bottles, and alcohol. Yet stringent Spanish restrictions on commerce inhibited growth in imports and exports alike. Gonzaga, Galvez, and their successors dealt with this situation in part by turning an official blind eye to the ever-increasing contraband trade. The British and American traders were technically forbidden to do business in Spanish New Orleans. But in practice, the colony depended on them. In 1772, Gonzaga made a brief show of expelling an Anglo merchants, and it seemed to satisfy Madrid. In reality, official tolerance of smuggling became the norm and led to corruption and favoritism. Colonial officials throughout New Spain became so accustomed to complying with the royal decrees superficially while skirting their substance that they developed a bureaucratic, shorthand for it. Obedezco, pero no cumplo. I obey, but I do not fulfill. That's their motto. As Spanish Louisiana grew, the eastern half of North America was plunged into war. When the 13 British Atlantic colonies declared their independence in 1776, Spain, seeing a chance to reclaim the Floridas from Britain, entered the Revolutionary War 1775 and 1783 on the side of America and France in the summer of 1779. Under Governor Galvez's personal leadership, a mixed force of Creole militiamen, Spanish regulars, and volunteer free men of color overwhelmed the British garrisons at Manchac, or Manchac in Baton Rouge. All right. The group went on to siege Mobile, the home of MardiGras. Mobile, Alabama is the home of MardiGras, okay? Right. But, New Orleans took it to the next level. All right. So the group went on to seize Mobile, Alabama, and eventually Pensacola, Florida. Finally, capturing the latter outpost in May 1781 after a prolonged siege and unsuccessful British relief efforts. These campaigns made a hero of the dashing Galvez. They also ensured in the ensuing peace settlement that the Floridas will be retroceded to Spain after 20 chaotic years under British rule. For the first time, Carlos III possession surrounded the entire Gulf of Mexico, from the Yucatan to the southern tip of East Florida. And it appeared a rejuvenated Spanish Atlantic Empire might be poised for a new era of dominance. All right, so now they have indentured servitude or slavery expansion and the gender Couleur Libres, the free people of color or the Creoles of color that were free. As Creole elites began to prosper under Spanish rule, they sought labor for the plantations that now dotted the banks of the Mississippi River as far north as Point Coupee. All right, Point Coupee. At the same time, British slave traders based in Jamaica, the Jamaican Taino people, dark-skinned Tainos, began a sharp increase in slave re-exports to Spanish America. Both of these circumstances, increased demand and ample supply, led to a dramatic expansion of diasporan Agbulan slavery in Louisiana. They also enslaved the dark-skinned indigenous people of Louisiana. All of the dark-skinned people did not come from Africa. They came from the Caribbean, and from right here in the Americas. All right. Just so y'all know. Side note, and I'm always say that shit because it's fucking facts. All right. So, all right. All right. It was not Spain's intent to suddenly increase the slave population, the slave supply, but Spanish governors were not inclined to block the human traffic. This is what they said, that their Creole allies so obviously desired. The surge in slave importation. So they had these, you had the ones that was basically passing as white and dealing with that shit. You had the corrupt Creole elites, and then you had the real ones. The real ones, all right? Anyway, okay, so they didn't want to these elite corrupt ones, they didn't want to block the human traffic shit. This is what they said. All right. The surge in slave importation in the 1770s and 1780s transformed Louisiana's economy and culture alike. So they had sugar plantations, they had tobacco, they had other things. They were trading pelts. They were doing all these things, right? They had these cash crops, indigo, tobacco and indigo. All right. Before 1782, British slave trade was illegal in Louisiana, but ships with a stated destination of Manchac, or I'm butchering that word, in British West Florida, could not be refused entry to the Mississippi River. Once there, they found it easy to sell their human cargo to Louisiana planters. By the time Spanish legalized this trade in 1782, the indentured servant and slave population of Louisiana had already more than doubled. During the next decade, and y'all heard me read that Haitians, Creole, Cubans, Haitians, Mexicans, Spanish, French, of course, American Indian, and from the Caribbean diaspora. They all were in this pot of gumbo in Louisiana, mainly through the port of Orleans, New Orleans. All right. With a peak number of 1550 arriving in 1787, and we can't forget about the Negro Indians that were there. Okay. In the context of the total Atlantic slave trade, these numbers were still small. However, for Louisiana, they were enormous for Louisiana. All right. Altogether, the 37 years of Spanish rule saw a tenfold increase in the indentured servant enslaved population, with as many as 29,000 enslaved women and men and children arriving in Louisiana. Almost all of them from the Caribbean, the diaspora, and Africa included. Almost all brought via Jamaica. So you had some dark-skinned Jamaican Taino people that came, and they called them Africans. I just want y'all to peep that. Peep game. Peep game, y'all. All right. This sudden influx, here they go with the hijack. All right. All right. So they misnomerly said re-Africanized an enslaved population, meaning they had they had Haitians there, Haitian Tainos, and the other dark-skinned indigenous tribes that were in Saint Domingo and Santo Domingo and other neighboring cities, Cuba. So you got Haiti, Santo Domingo, and the Dominican Republic. That was all like one. It was just different cities. All right. We know the French was dominant on one side, the Spanish was dominant on the other side, right? which causes a whole bunch of mess today. But you have all these people. They mentioned they came in from Cuba and all these places. So this is from the diaspora, the Caribbean islands. These were dark-skinned indigenous people from the islands that they called Africans. But they were dark-skinned indigenous people. Island Indians, basically. I'm just saying, y'all. Y'all gotta know, okay? All right. So it says they adapted to the Creole, the French-speaking ways of the previous regime. Also, they did include diasporic music, Caribbean, Agbulan, African, Cuban, Haitian, Taino, Jamaican, Cuban. They included all this music with the dark-skinned indigenous tribal people that were in Louisiana. All right, because I did touch on the Caddo Creoles if you just tuning in, right? All right, and drumming began to be heard on rural plantations as well as during Sunday gatherings in an open field now known as Congo Square in New Orleans. As the indentured servitude Negro Indians spoke their native languages in the streets and servants' quarters, the Negro Indian population became both more visible and more distinctly foreign, I guess, to those people that was claiming, white, more of the Spanish French heritage, right? Those corrupt elite Creoles, right? All right, and I will show this. Where is it? All right. I'm going to show this because I got an album that I'm going to share. All right, so they did this in Congo Square, right? Yep, I'm going to show my shit and I'm going to represent, right? That's what I do. All right, so and this is me in Congo Square. In the NOLA, baby. All right. In New Orleans, Louisiana. And this is the area of the Chata, and they say the Homa. All right. And other dark-skinned indigenous peoples that they call Negro Indians, or they misnomer call them Creoles of color. All right. So this is where they did celebrate their spirituality and culture in Congo Square. And this is a part of the caste system with the Spanish, because Louisiana was under Spanish rule for a long time. I just read how long they was under Spanish rule, right? Even French. The French didn't even want Great Britain to take over. So they was like, yeah, the Spanish, y'all have it. So this was, New Orleans was also called New Spain, right? Okay, so you have the Indios, the dark-skinned Indios. You have the different, they not even letting me do it. I tried to make it bigger. All right, so, but you have, these are called mestizos, and they have all the different derivatives. So if your mama was this, your daddy was this, or if these two combinations make up this. All right. They have mulatto, Creole, mestizo. They have all of these. So y'all can look up the Spanish caste system. CASTE, the Spanish caste system. Okay. Yeah, I want to look it up. This chair keep on. Okay. Making all this noise. But they show dark-skinned Indians mixed in with this and that. So they came up with all these derivatives. Instead of calling these people by their tribal names with all these mixtures of cultures, they gave them these new misnomer names, y'all. All right. So even this is blurry, but Spanish caste system. You have Creoles, Mestizos, Indigenous. And you had also the dark-skinned Creoles, where they got jealous of the dark-skinned Creole women with their elaborate hairdos, their elaborate hairstyles, all right? The Creoles of color, they didn't like them displaying their hair, all right? Their extravagant hairstyle. So, Louisiana's Tignon laws of 1786. All right. New Orleans was unique in its high population of the gens de couleur, Libres, free people of color, or the Creoles of color. The city's free Negro Indian community, Creole, made strides in education, business, civil rights, art, and medicine, contributed heavy to the Black Creole culture, the dark-skinned Creole culture, or dark-skinned Indian, Negro Indian, mixed with French and Spanish and all these West Indian tribes, because they also came from the Caribbean, the diaspora. So you got all these mixtures going on in the state of Louisiana, period. But they are highlighting New Orleans. All right. New Orleans is renowned for and created a legacy of Negro Indian institutions and history. This third class possessed privileges and their enslaved peers did not. Their indentured servitude peers did not. And although technically free from slavery, they were exempt from certain social freedoms as whites. Free people of color, Creoles of color, possessed privileges that their peers did not, such as being free from the institution of slavery, receiving an education, owning property. However, the law did not recognize them as being in the same social class as the misnomer whites. Their status was considered a threat to the city's white population. Yeah, because if you have some babies, they gonna be Negro Indian babies. They gonna have some couleur. That's what they gonna have. Couleur. All right. But these white men, these Caucasian men, strangely fetishized these women. They had fetishes for these Creoles of color. They did. Reportedly, even going as far as to participate in the Lassiez system, a highly debated quadroon balls. What? Plaçage or placade derives from placer, the French word to place with. Wealthy white men would enter civil unions with free women of color, Creole women of color. These Negro indigenous women that was mixed with Spanish and French and West Indian tribes, all right? But these Caucasian men, they will be in civil union with them because they had a fetish for them. Okay, and you know who was jealous, right? Okay. All right. these wealthy white men will enter civil unions with these free women of color while having entire families of their own. This practice contractually ensured that these Creole women of color and their children will be taken care of, all right, through financial support, simultaneously feeding the white men's infatuation with these young Creole indigenous women. This infatuation spanned across centuries and infuriated white women in the city. The white women of the colony believed their husbands' attention to the Creole, dark-skinned, various shades Creole indigenous women, their bodies, their hair, and their style posed a threat to their social status. In 1786, Louisiana Territory was under the Spanish rule of Governor Esteban Rodriguez Miro. God forbid if a woman of Negro Indian descent was mistakenly treated with the same decency as a white woman. So Miro enforced a law that forced Creole women of color, Creole indigenous women, to outwardly identify themselves as a slave class, even though a large percentage of them were free. That outward identifier was a tignon, a material knotted to make a headscarf to cover their beautiful, extravagant hair and hairstyles. Ain't that a bitch? All right. Yes, we know. Okay. So these Creole women were completely covered. They were to completely cover their hair to retain from displaying excessive attention to their dress. It is noted that Miro hoped the laws would control women who had become too light-skinned or who dressed too elegantly or who competed too freely with white women for status and thus threatened the social order. This is what went on. These are facts. This is Fire Fact fucking Fridays. If you don't like the facts, get the fuck off. Go to somebody else's page. All right. So, all right. I guess this was supposed to spare the feelings of the city's white women, but it did not work. You could cover the Creole indigenous woman, but her essence is still gonna exude a spiritual cultural power that cannot fucking be denied. All right. So it says, all right. It says these little laws, it did not work. It did not work. It probably made them want them more. The law was put in place to label free women of color, the Creole indigenous women of color, as less than others, like making them cover up and shit. Don't that sound familiar of other people that have the women cover up and shit? It just makes the men want them more. All right. All right. Anyway, so, okay, it says, and they did what had been in the nature of Creole women for centuries, forming beauty and innovation out of oppression. See how she still looked royal and distinct, this dark-skinned Creole of color, free woman of color in her tignon. Even her, from the darkest brown to you got this one. She's caramel like me. And then you got the ones that's high yellow. The caramels and those colors are the true red bones. The other ones, they high yellow, right? I will touch on the red bones. I did touch on the cattle Creoles, but you also have the red bones of Louisiana. All right. And so let's continue. All right, so it says these Creole women followed the law by covering their hair, but decorated their tignons with their scarves, their elaborate, luxurious scarves with beautiful colors, jewelry, and feathers. They had the feathers. All right. All right. What was meant to suppress them made them even more stunning in appearance. It was so stunning that the white women of the colony couldn't let them have anything, not even the very things meant to oppress us, and began to copy and wear the tignons as well. Oh, they said, okay, y'all like women wearing these tignons, we gonna wear them too. So, it says that the Caucasian women started to copy this and wear it as well. Y'all see that, right? Okay. The Tignon Law was no longer after the U.S. acquired Louisiana in the Louisiana Purchase, the illegal Louisiana Purchase, but these Creole women continue to bear elaborate tignons today and to this very day. Creole women's hair is still policed. Creole girls, Creole Indigenous girls, Negro Indian girls have been sent home from school because of braids. They have been fired due to their natural hair and have lost job offers for not cutting their locks, etc. Remember, these women, these Creole women, they have blood of people that came from Cuba, Jamaica, the Tainos, dark-skinned Tainos from Jamaica, Haiti, Haiti, Santo Domingo. All these people, they have West Indian blood, American Indian blood, diasporan blood from the Caribbean islands, and a small percentage of Akbulan that they call Africa today. I went over this. If you're just tuning in, I read how all these people came into Louisiana and created this Louisiana Creole culture of all these mixtures, and they mixed with the French and the Spanish. All right. You also have the other misnomers is mulattoes, maroons, there's various derivatives, melungeons, etc. They gave them all these different names because they were a mixture of peoples. All right. So, all right. So, where did I leave off at? All right. So basically, y'all get the drift of what I'm saying. So this is a painting of it is believed that this is the voodoo priestess Marie Laveau, the historic face of the Tignon. She has a Tignon scarf and she made that shit pop. It was luxurious, elite, extravagant, glorious. All right. With a little bit of hair peeping out. Now, some say she existed and they mix her up with her daughter. And then some people say that she didn't exist. She represents an archetype of the powerful Creole Indigenous woman of Louisiana. All right. So, and I am going to show my stuff. Not only are we giving honor to Marie Laveau, but my matriarch, all right, my grandmother Rio from La Louisiane, a Creole of color. And then this is some Creoles of color. This was a painting of Creoles of color. You see the different shades from the darkest brown to the lightest brown. And then that's me during Carnival, MardiGras time. And this is my mother's jambalaya recipe right there. Bam, bam, bam. And I made that. And we will delve into the Code Noir also. And this is the Creole flag. So Creoles of Color. And this is my mama's recipe of jambalaya in the background that I made. All right. So, and that batch, I rushed and did that batch. But a lot of other batches that I made of that shit was potent and fire. That was like a mild version. But okay, so let's go here. All right, let's go here. All right, so we will look at this. All right. This is the transcription of the Code Noir, the Black Code. I did show y'all the caste system where they have, if you look like this or you look like that, we have the Creoles of Louisiana. And let's see. Where's the other one? This is the caste system. So if you have these different mixtures, they start saying, oh, you this, you that, you're labeled this, you labeled that. So they have a lot of little stuff going on. Okay, I'm just making sure. All right, make sure I'm still live. All right, so this just shows the various mixtures from the Moreno to the Mestizo to the Creole, the Mulattos, the Maroons, the Quadroons, all of these mixtures, the Mestizo, Mulatto, I said that, but these are this is the caste system, right? This is related to all of this stuff. They just try to come up with all kind of stuff, but Creoles of color are a unique multicultural groups of people. All right. They speak French Creole. They're Creoles and Creolos. They have Spanish blood. I got a little bit of everything. I've done my genealogy and I have some oral tradition history from especially my paternal grandparents. They told me a lot of history. All right. But today, with this Louisiana Creole culture, I'm giving honor to my grandmother, Rio. She is a Creole of color, and her husband, my grandfather, is a Creole of color, a cattle Creole. All right, if you will. All right, so I went over those with y'all. Let's just do a little overview of this. All right. All right, so the Les Enslaves Negres de la Amérique. All right. The Black Code are a collection of edicts, declarations, and decrees concerning the Negres or the Negro Indian slaves of America. All right. The Code Noir regulated the institution of slavery and the rights of all dark-skinned Indian subjects, whether free or enslaved, within French Empire. First issued as an edict under King Louis XIV in 1685, the Code Noir was enforced by French authorities in Louisiana Territory as the nation expanded its land holdings illegally. All right. In what would later become the U.S., the Code Noir remained in effect after France ceded the Louisiana Territory to Spain in 1762, which I have read about. And I read at the beginning of this podcast. All right. This live. All right. In 1762 and remained on the books until the U.S. acquired these lands illegally through the illegal Louisiana Purchase, of 1803, 1804. Parts of the Code Noir would later show up in the Missouri State Constitution after statehood was achieved in 1821. So y'all can look at this in depth. The Edict of this King. All right, this was in Saint Domingue because remember they tried to take over France, and for a while, they tried to take over Saint Domingue in Hispaniola, which is now known as Haiti, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic. On one side, the French was dominant. The other side, the Spanish was dominant. And then when they failed, because the Haitian Taino, dark-skinned Tainos of Haiti, Saint Domingue, after they won the Haitian Revolution, them French people got the fuck up out of there. And then they tried to go to Louisiana and take over some shit. And it was like the Spanish and the French was like playing catch. Like, no. I won. No, you lost. That they was playing games and shit. So it's just fucking sickening to me. But this breaks down the different edicts. All right. So I'm gonna just let y'all see this. Y'all can look it up. I touched on this a long time ago, but I recently touched on it when we had the Super Bowl in New Orleans. And I did talk about the illegal Louisiana purchase. So the Caddo Creoles, the Caddo tribe were some mound builders in Louisiana also. So I'm always give shout out to them. Always. All right, let's see. I'm looking up the book so y'all can see. Y'all just need to check out this book. All right. Check out this book. Now, you got to read books, all books. You got to sift through all books, just so y'all know. But y'all can look up the court case where the state of Louisiana, I read this, but they did in this case where the Empress of the Ouachita, basically, she is the heir to the original Louisiana, basically. And her land is up there by Monroe, Louisiana, but that's only a portion. But anyway, y'all can read up on the return of the ancient ones. This talks about the mound builders, and it also talks about her other ancestry besides her mound builder ancestry. So y'all can look up this book. Empress Verdiasi, Return of the Ancient Ones. So it's just another reference that y'all can look up. A lot of people know about this. Some people don't. Some people are just, waking up to these things. So, the Ancient Ones refers to the mound builders, the dark-skinned indigenous people that were in the Americas before the colonizers came. So, all right, wait a minute. Let's see. So, we were showing the Tignons also. Let's see. And this was at Marie Laveau's, one of her houses, 1020-22 Rue Street, or Rue Saint Anne. All right. Marie Laveau and her children lived at this site between 1839 and 1895 before circa 1905 construction of the existing cottage. And this is me there in New Orleans. All right. In front of her house. All right. And this is me in pie. All right. Let's see. So this is me at Marie Laveau's St. Louis Cemetery plot, her shrine. She was a renowned Creole of color woman. And here she is right here. Where is she at? All right, let's see. Oh, the Tignons. I appreciate y'all tuning in. I've been watching the chat. Y'all quiet. I guess y'all just looking and observing. Let me go to the Tignons. All right, let me go to this. And let's see. Here we go. So I was showing y'all the Creoles of color, the dark-skinned Creoles of Louisiana. And I did break down the definition of Creoles and Creoles. Creoles is the French Creole mixed with indigenous tribes of the Americas and the diaspora, and the Creoles is mixed with the Spanish and of the dark-skinned indigenous tribes of the diaspora. So you have like from the darkest brown to the lightest brown, and these were Creoles of color. And then we showed Marie Laveau. All right, the voodoo priestess. And this is me at her quote unquote cemetery shrine at the St. Louis Cemetery in New Orleans, Louisiana. So, yeah, so this is it. This is me there. All right, so let's see. And around MardiGras Carnival time, I'm going to do a tribute. That's what I'm going to fucking do. That's what I do. I celebrate my ancestors' spirituality and culture. So, y'all know that Creoles are of many shades. So, back to this, the Code Noir. Let's pull this back up. The transcription of the Code Noir, the Black Code, all right? This is dealing with the Negro Indians, the Creoles, the dark-skinned Creoles, all right, in Louisiana territory. So these are the edicts of the king, right? And they have some sick shit in here too. All right. And I ain't gonna read all the shit. I'm not. But it is saying, it's talking about basically that they should be converted to Catholicism and the apostolic faith instead of them embracing their indigenous culture and West Indian cultures from the Caribbean, the diaspora in the Americas. They wanted to enforce Catholicism and Christianity on the Creoles of color. All right. This is what these edicts was about. Let's Christianize Christianized the dark-skinned Indians in Louisiana. All right. They tried to reform them. This is their little shit, right? Their little corrupt shit. All right. And they said, oh, it says, oh, I'm going to read just one example. Okay, it says, we forbid our subjects who belong to the so-called reform religion from causing any trouble or unforeseen difficulties for our other subjects, or even for their own slaves, or free exercise of Roman Catholic or Apostolic faith at the risk of exemplary punishment. We rejoin all of our subjects of whatever religion and social status they may be to observe Sundays and the holidays that are observed by our subjects of the Roman Catholic and Apostolic faith. We forbid them to work on Sundays, nor make their slaves work in said days from midnight until the following day. Now, on Sundays, they did go to Congo Square, in which I did show. I went to Congo Square and let my feet touch the sacred ground of Congo Square, baby. And here, where is it? Oh, I'm sorry, one more time. Yes, I am. So, oh, my daddy got the heat up. All right. I'm sweating. All right, my nose been sweating, y'all. So if y'all see me do this, my nose sweats, okay? They used to say that means you mean. All right, so yes, so this is me at Congo Square. This is where they got to do their spirituality and culture on Sundays in Congo Square. All right, outside of that Catholic church. All right. Yeah. Okay, so back to this. All right, back to the Code Noir, right? It's saying, all right, so they said, okay, so on Sundays it says, nor make their slaves work on said days from midnight until the following midnight. They shall neither cultivate the earth. They get a fucking day off. Even when I read about the Tainos and the Haitian Revolution in Saint Domingue, when they got emancipated, they was like, we getting time off because we gonna till and tend to our land and grow our land up, build our land up. They demanded some different shit too. Here, this was like a day off to celebrate spirituality and culture. But in Hispaniola, where Haiti in the Dominican Republic is, Saint Domingue, when they got free, they was like, nah, we're going to have time off to cultivate our land. And they start taking their land back, all kind of shit. They was like, nah, we going to, yeah. And basically, we're going to work when the fuck we want to work. Yeah, they was going hard. All right, so even though they had all these rigid rules for the Creoles of color and the people of indentured servitude, they also made rules to the supervisors and shit, saying that they would be punished. It says basically that they had to let them have the Sundays and the holidays are observed and of the Roman and Catholic Apostolic faith. All right. They didn't have to work on those days, etc. They didn't have to cultivate the land, manufacture sugar, tobacco, indigo, sugarcane, none of that shit. They didn't have to do no work. At the risk of a fine and an arbitrary punishment against the masters and of confiscation by our officers as much of as much sugar worked by said slave before being caught. We forbid them also to hold slave markets or any other market on said days, at the risk of similar punishments and of confiscation of the merchandise that shall be discovered at the market, and an arbitrary fine against the sellers. We declare that our subjects who are not of Roman Catholic and Apostolic faith are incapable of contracting a valid marriage in the future. These bitches, how they putting all these little fucked up rules, right? We declare any child born from such unions to be bastards, and we desire that said marriages be held and reputed, and to hold and repute as actual concubinage. These assholes was a piece of work with their little rules where they tried to get some order. They tried to get some control because the Creole indigenous people, they had their own gumbo pot of culture and spirituality. And these colonizers wanted to control it. They wanted to control it and suppress it. But they was attracted to it. Y'all heard me read about they had fetishes. The men had fetishes for these dark-skinned Creole women. And their wives didn't like it. Their Caucasian wives did not like it. All right. And so they didn't want them to carry weapons or large sticks. They was scared that these people would rise up and fight back and say, fuck y'all rules. We're going to go back to doing what we did, what we've always done for thousands of years before y'all came, colonizers. We live by our indigenous ways. So they had all these rules, right? So that is it in a nutshell. These are the little fucked up rules that they wanted to impose on these Creoles of color. So I did read to y'all, and I'm going to bring it back home too, so that y'all can overstand. Overstand right here. It says, who are the Creoles? There is evidence that both French and Spanish colonial Louisiana identified all its people, white, black, and mixed, both free and indentured or enslaved, indentured servants, who were born in the new world of old world stock as Creole. That included the offspring of Europeans, predominantly French and Spanish. This is what they're talking about. Africans, those from the diaspora that they just labeled everybody Africans. They wrongly did this, but the people of the diaspora, the Caribbean islands, people from Haiti, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Cuba, various Caribbean islands, Jamaica, all these Taino, dark-skinned Taino, and other tribal people that were dark-skinned indigenous people. And this mixture can also include Native American, American Indian. Therefore, the descendants of all these people can claim Creole heritage. All right. These are big facts. Fire Fact Fridays. So that's what it is. That is what it is. So, and let me see. Am I missing anything before we close out? I am going to close out in 2 hours. Let me see. Is there anything else I wanted to share with y'all? It's the gens, the Couleur, Libres, free people of color, Creoles of color. Let's see. And we also have the food and all of this rich culture. Okay, so also Creoles of color are a historic ethnic group of Creole people in Louisiana, period, and especially the city of New Orleans, southern Mississippi, Alabama, where Mobile, Alabama is the home of MardiGras, and northwestern Florida. Mixed race Creoles of color became, let me go back here. What? Okay. Okay, so it says mixed race Creoles of color became identified as a distinct ethnic group. Gender, couleur, libres, libre, free peoples of color, free persons of color, Creoles. Prior to the 19th century, during Louisiana's colonial period, Creole referred to people born in Louisiana who had ancestors from elsewhere, all natives other than and including American Indians, Native Americans. The term Creole was first used by French colonists to distinguish themselves from foreign-born settlers, and later as distinct from Anglo-American settlers. Colonial documents show that the term Creole was used variously at different times to refer to mixed race people, even light-skinned people, Caucasian people that was mixed, and dark-skinned people, Negro Indians, whether free or indentured servants. Many Creoles of color were free. They had their own businesses, etc. I read that earlier. This is a recap so we can close out. Their descendants also enjoyed many of the same privileges as well as the Caucasians. And we know that the women got jealous because their men were having fetishes, so they made these Tignon laws to make them wear these scarves. But the Creole of color women, the indigenous Creole women, they wore elaborate scarves, Tignons with feathers and royal dresses, etc. They showed the fuck out. And those men still wanted them. And they had civil unions with these Creoles of color. All right. These women that had multiracial, that were from the darkest brown to the lightest brown. All right. They had multiracial bloodlines. And some historians do suggest that New Orleans was the cradle of the civil rights movement in the United States. Due to the earliest efforts of Creoles to integrate the military en masse, Creoles of color have been members of the militia for decades under both Spanish and French control of the colony of Louisiana. They do talk about the Battle of Baton Rouge, etc. So, just so you know, the bourgeoisie, Creole aristocrats, Grand habitantes, a prosperous educated group of multicultural Creoles, the bourgeoisie. Oh my goodness. Yeah, they had these different laws and shit. But it is just a rich heritage and culture. There's a lot of mixtures. And I did show y'all the caste system. Let's look at this a little bit. This one, because I did show this. The Creoles of Louisiana. I got 10 minutes and that'll be two hours. All right. The Creoles of Louisiana. George W. Cable. Author of Old Creole Days and Grand Decimes, Madame Dauphine, Dr. Server, I don't know. I can't make out that word. It's kind of distorted. All right, let's look at this. All right. Who are the Creoles? French founders, the Creole city, diasporic, Caribbean, Indian, and African slaves in Indian wars, the new generation, the first Creoles, praying to the king, Uloa Abri, the Superior Council, the insurrection, the price of half convictions, Count O'Reilly. I went over some of this, right? I just read the condensed, summarized synopsis version of this book earlier. Spanish Conciliation, the American Revolution on the Gulf side, Spanish New Orleans, how Bore made sugar, the Creoles sing Marseillais or Marsalis. I'm butchering that shit. I ain't been practicing French. I have not. They say when you don't use it, you lose it. The only time I use French or French Creole is during MardiGras time. I haven't speaked it fluently since high school and college. Because I took French all 4 years of high school. And I took French and Spanish in college. Grambling State University. Grambling Tigers, baby. My family members also went to LSU, so I'm representing today because I love the purple and the gold, some of the MardiGras colors. All right. Carnival colors. All right. The Americans. Spain against fate. New Orleans sought, Louisiana bought. New Orleans in 1803, from subjects to citizens. Burr conspiracy. The West Indian cousin. And I've been saying this shit. All right. I've been saying it all night. When they keep saying African, they talking about from the diaspora, the Caribbean Indians, the dark-skinned indigenous people of the Caribbean islands, all right? And the dark-skinned Creole Indians, all right? A lot of Haitian culture, Haitian Taino culture is in Louisiana too. All right, so let's see. Even with voodoo. All right, which is a spirituality system, a culture. All right. So they even talk about, okay, the West Indian cousins. We're gonna look at that. The pirates of Barataria destroyed, British invasion, the Battle of New Orleans, the end of the pirates, Faburo, Saint Marie, 100,000 people, flush times, why not bigger than London, the schoolmaster, later days, inundations, Suave, Crevasse, the days of pestilence, the great epidemic, brighter skies. They do have some maps and things. I do want to look at the West Indies. Let's look at that one. The West Indian cousins to the Creoles of color. All right. The Louisiana Creoles. 156. We're going to look at that. All right, let's go here. Make sure I miss nothing. All right, let's go over this. The West Indian cousin. Between 1804 and 1810, New Orleans doubled its population. The common notion is that there was a large influx of Anglo-Americans. This was not the case. A careful estimate shows not more than 3,100 of these in the city in 1809. Yet, in the following year, the whole population, including the suburbs, was 24,552. The Americans, therefore, were numerically feeble. The increase came from another direction. It says, Napoleon Wars were convulsing Europe. The navies of his enemies fell upon the French West Indies. In Cuba, large numbers of white and mulatto refugees who in the Saint Domingan insurrection, the Haitian Revolution, IET, Saint Domingo, all right, Domingue, insurrection had escaped across to Cuba with their servants, were now, by hostilities between France and Spain, forced again to become exiles. Within 60 days, between May and July of 1809, 34 vessels from Cuba set ashore in the streets of New Orleans. Nearly 5,800 persons, white, free mulattoes, and Negro servitude, Negro slaves, which they say misnomer slaves, okay? So these dark-skinned Tainos, because all these different dark-skinned indigenous people came from Haiti and Cuba that they're talking about right here, all right? Saint Domingo and Cuba. This is where these dark-skinned indigenous people came from that came into Louisiana, New Orleans. All right, the port of Orleans. All right. White free. Okay, yeah. Equal numbers. Others came later, it says, from Cuba, Guadalupe, and other islands until they amounted to 10,000. So you have people from Cuba, and Guadalupe, not only IET, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic in that area, because the French was more prominent on one side, the Spanish was more prominent on the other side. So you have all these people coming into Louisiana. All right, these are some of the ethnic groups, cultures, and spiritualities that are a part of the gumbo pot of the Creoles of color in the state of Louisiana and the neighboring states. Because I just read it was also in Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi. Okay. All right. It says nearly all they settled permanently in New Orleans. The Creoles of Louisiana received the Creoles of the West Indies with tender welcomes because they was a mixture of bloodlines and cultures and spiritualities just like them. All right, that gumbo pot is just beautiful. It's awesome. You have the darkest Creoles to the lightest ones. All right. All right. So it says they welcomed them. The state of society in the islands from which these had came needs no description. All right. As late as 1871, 72, and 73, there were in the island of Guadeloupe only 3 marriages to 1,000 inhabitants. But they came to their better cousins with the ties of a common religion and a common tongue, much common sentiment, misfortunes that may have had some resemblance, and with the poetry of exile. They were reinforcements too, at a moment when the power of the Americans, few in number, when they say Americans, dark-skinned American indigenous peoples, few in number, but potent in energies and advantages, was looked upon with hot jealousy. All right, it says. All right, the Anglo-Americans clamored against them, for they came in swarms. They brought little money or goods. They raised the price of bread and of rent. They lowered morals and disturbed order. Yet it was certainly true the Anglo-Americans had done little to improve either of these. Some had come to stay, many more to make a fortune and get away. Both sorts were simply and only seeking wealth. The West Indians had not come to a city whose civilization could afford to absorb them. The Creole element needed a better infusion, and yet was probably the best in the community. The Spaniards were few and bad, described by one as capable of the vilest depredations, a nuance to the country, a nuisance, excuse me, not a fucking nuance, a nuisance to the country, they said, and even by the mild Claiborne, as for the most part, well suited for mischievous and wicked enterprises. The free people of color were about 2,000, unaspiring, corrupted, and feeble. These are somebody else's fucking words, right? They describing the people, right? They describing our people. They don't have the best interests of our people. But okay, these victors, they write the books and shit, right? The floating population was extremely bad, blah, 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 blah. So basically, let's look at this. We don't even want to talk about Bonaparte and his little goons and shit. Anyway, so it's just showing how the West Indian Islanders from the diaspora, the dark-skinned indigenous people, came to Louisiana and mixed in. This is why Louisiana and the neighboring states have a rich culture of people, Creoles of color. So there you have it. I'm at 2 hours and 3 minutes, and I can do a part 2 on next Fire Fact Fridays. If y'all want to join me, I'm going to be doing this up until Carnival MardiGras season is up. I'm going to be doing this. So I appreciate everybody who tuned in. And I will do a part 2. But I did want to focus on the West Indians that came into Louisiana. Yes. And this talks about now into such a city, say of 14,000 inhabitants at most, swarm 10,000 white, yellow, and the darkest brown that they misnomer black. West Indian Islanders, West Indians, some with means, other in absolute destitution, and many of doubtful character and desperate fortune. Americans, English, Spanish cry aloud. The laws forbid the importation of slaves. Claiborne adjures the American consuls at Havana and Santiago de Cuba to stop the movement. So these people, like I said, they came from Cuba, they came from Haiti, they came from the Caribbean islands, they came from Jamaica. These were dark-skinned indigenous people. So don't get it fucked up, don't get it twisted. Overstand what it is. All right. And it says that they had this Creole community. It was in on Orleans Street, Dumaine, Saint Philippe, Saint Peter, Dauphine, Burgundy. All right. It was parts of the native Creole community. All right. They have Spanish and French, mostly French indigenous speaking Louisianans. So, and they even talk about the pirates that was there. It's a whole eclectic gumbo pot there, which I love it. I love it. So I will do a part 2 next week. And y'all come kick it with me next week. Y'all come kick it with me. This is Jackson Square. This infamous Catholic church. So y'all come back next Friday, next Fire Fridays, for Fridays, DiFe Fridays. All right. And, kick it with me. We're going to dig into this rich Creole indigenous culture. That's what we're going to dig into. And I appreciate y'all. And I'm giving honor and respect to my matriarch. One of my matriarchs. Giving honor and respect to Rio. My grandmother Rio. And the Creoles of color of La Louisiane. And the recipes that was passed down that my mama made for us, and then I made. And this one that I made on here, the picture, that was just a real fast one. I didn't even, have time to marinate it and do what I do. I've had much better batches, but this one was a pretty one that I did. But these are Creoles of color. You see all the shades. And I just want to celebrate the Creole culture because it's just so rich and beautiful, and I just love it. And I'm so glad to be a product of it, to be a descendant of it, and even to experience it over time. Even when I went off to college, and spent time in Louisiana. I went to Grambling State, but my family members went to LSU. So when I went to visit my cousin that stays in Baton Rouge, I got me some LSU gear, baby. Yes, I'm representing. Yeah. So, I want to thank y'all for tuning in. And I'll see y'all next for Fridays. DiFe Fridays. I will see y'all. Did anybody have any comments or questions before I get out of here? I don't want to just be, not entertaining your comments or questions. I'm going to give y'all a couple of minutes. And, yeah. Give y'all a couple of minutes if y'all got any questions or comments. And we're going to start back also on this. We can start back dealing with when you have some people come from Jamaica, Cuba. They do talk about that in this 64 parishes website that breaks down the history. And of course, the book. We can go into some more of the Caddo Creoles and the Creoles of Louisiana. And we did go over this, the Code Noir. We did briefly showcase the Voodoo Priestess, Haitian Voodoo, and Louisiana Voodoo is a gumbo pot of spirituality and culture. Very rich. So I appreciate y'all tuning in. It looks like y'all don't have no comments or questions. Oh, Zoe in progress, you back. Daco, Sherry, Passe, Bonnuit. Okay, now, I don't know if you heard me, but I took French all 4 years of high school. And in college, I took French and Spanish. So I know a little Louisiana and Haitian Creole, a little bit. So I know a little bit. I can't speak fluently with you, Zoe in progress, but I appreciate you tuning in. But this is this live was dedicated to one of my grandmothers, one of my matriarchs, who was a Creole of color. All right. And my grandfather, who is not pictured here, he is a Caddo Creole. He has a mixture of things in him also. So by definition, they are both Louisiana Creoles, along with all the other mixtures that came into Louisiana. And that include some Haitians from Saint Domingue or Santo Domingo, Hispaniola, Haiti, Cuba, and Jamaica, the Tainos from all of those places. So shout out to my Creoles of color. I'm out. Peace, 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 peace.